on my forge stand there, stuff that's been kind of laying up there forever. I'm going to attempt to forge weld a small billet together, hopefully to make a little free finger knife, or maybe a small hidden tang knife. We'll see how it goes. But what I got here is I got 3 old dug up railroad spikes. I find these when I'm metal detecting over in the field. That is right off of some train tracks that were pretty historic to the Civil War. So a lot of these railroad spikes that I dig up are pretty much just iron, and yeah, well over 100 years old. So I find these quite frequently over there, and I save them to do different blacksmith projects with. So I have 3 of those, and I'm going to attempt a San Mai out of this little scrap cut off of spring steel from the last tomahawk that I made. So I'm going to forge this down thin, have a high carbon core with the iron San Mai around it, and hopefully get a small knife out of it. So without further ado, I'll go ahead and get everything shaped up to the dimension that it needs to be, and we'll get to cleaning up the steel and see if we can forge weld that mess together. So hold on. Alright, get this into dimension. Deteriorated, so you gotta keep it hot because it's gonna split. Alright, I'm still working on the center too. Trying to get everything to shape. Roughly around the same dimension. Alright, so I got my iron drawn out, and now I'm still working on the bit. I'm gonna get this thinner. I got the forge hot enough where I can shut it off in between heats. So no, not heats, but hammering, forging. So we're gonna thin this down. We're gonna get it about half the thickness of the iron, because when I get this up to forge welding temperature, this iron's gonna shut off fast, and this is not gonna want to move. All right, so here are my pieces. Got iron, This is the carbon steel. So kind of what I'm thinking is I'm going to sandwich this like this. And we're going to take this, put that on the top like that. So that's what the theory is. So first we're going to start by getting everything cleaned up, of course. And I'm going to tack weld together, and I'm going to forge weld this part together. Then after that's forge welded, I'm going to forge weld this onto the top. So hopefully it works. Never done that before, but yeah, we'll see what happens. All right, so here's the pieces kind of cleaned up. This one's not done yet. This is going to be the top, so I think I'm going to have to still forge this one a little bit more narrow. But I'm going to go ahead and tack this together and at least get this weld set, and we'll have have this portion of the billet done, hopefully, and then we'll forge this to closer dimension. I'll get this cleaned up, and then try to forge weld this on top. So, all right. So, as I was prepping the billet, I decided to do two things. I decided to weld all the way around it to help with the oxidation inside of the metal. And I also decided to weld a handle on it. And if all goes well and it's welded on there really nice, it might wind up being the tang to the knife. So hopefully I got a good weld on here and it kind of just becomes part of the knife. If not, you know, I can always cut it off, but I think I'm in pretty good shape. So now I have a handle to hold on to it so I can forge weld the entire length of the billet and maybe even have some welded on mild steel here for the handle tang. So see what happens. All right, so I just kind of tapping everything tight in an orange heat, and now I'm going to crank up the pressure, see if I can't forge weld this. So I actually don't have any flux in there, so I'm going to see how this goes. I'm hoping just keeping all the oxygen out is going to allow this thing to weld up. So I'm trying to concentrate, so I'm not talking much. But while I'm waiting for the next heat, if you notice, I'm flipping the billet every time I stick it back in the forge. So when I pull it back out, I'm hitting the opposite side that I just hit on the previous heat. I found if you don't do that with the iron, you'll shed the iron off so fast to one side, and your San Mai will be really uneven from one side to the other. So you got to constantly keep flipping the work because you're going to do more work on the hammer side of the billet versus the angle side of the billet. And if you keep hitting just one side with the hammer, while the face of the anvil is hitting the other side, you're going to shed a lot of iron off. So if you're going to do this with iron, probably even mild steel too, you're going to have to remember to flip the billet every single time you put it in and out of the forge to try to keep it as even as possible. Alright, so I'm going to stop forging. I got it forged pretty thin. It's going to be a forged finish anyways. So I really want to see that wrought iron. Or iron, I don't know what kind of iron it is. I dug it up out of the ground, so it could be anything. But I definitely know it's not steel. Whether or not it's wrought, I don't know. So I'm going to do a couple of normalization cycles. And in case you're wondering, the knife is not going to be square. I did not want to forge a point in to bust all my welds out. I'm going to grind those points in. I'm going to grind those bevels in. I did kind of taper the billet a little bit to one side, but I didn't do any hardcore bevel forging. I just kind of held it at an angle as I thinned it down. So this is kind of going to be the top side profile of the knife, which I'm happy with. Kind of point up, handle down in the back. And I'm going to do a couple of normalization cycles. I'm going to do some brushing to get some of this heavy scale off. But you're not going to be able to get too much of it off because this iron just scales off like, yeah, it's like picking your skin after a sunburn. It just flakes right off. All right, here's the knife after profiling and grinding. I got it hand sanded to, I mean, it's a rough cut 200 grit finish. So I'm gonna get ready to do a heat treat. But before I do, I'm gonna put my mark in it. So I'm gonna kind of heat it up red, stamp my mark in it, and then I'm gonna continue with the heat treat and just harden it. And we're gonna go ahead and put it in a 400-degree oven for a few hours for a temper. And then I'll start the process of hand sanding and hopefully revealing what looks like something's going to be decent. So yeah, so far so good. I mean, I'm pretty sure that I got the high carbon metal in the center, so we'll see what happens. So it looks like the heat treat went pretty good. And I got carbon steel in the center here, escaping this file. Check this tip. All right, everything went well. I was a little bit concerned here at the tip, but there's a little bit of iron out on the edge that I think I'll be able to sand through because I'm down to the good carbon steel. I can hear it on the file. So after I do the final sanding, get this thing down to its edge, I'll be in good shape. Alright, while it's still warm, I'm going to go ahead and put it in an oven over there. I got it set for 400 degrees, so this is going to be a temper, and we're going to leave the cutting edge a little bit on the harder side, since it does have a soft iron body that, in theory, should absorb shock. So, alright, I'm going to go ahead and get in the oven, and I'll bring it back in a couple hours, fraction of a second for you. All right, in the last scene you saw me, I had it in ferric chloride and I was rubbing it with steel wool. And I went ahead and I etched it overnight. And I went ahead and etched it in some coffee. And it's going right on a full day of sitting in the coffee. All right, so let's do a little bit of a recap. We had a whole bunch of different ideas flowing while we were forging this. The original idea was a San Mai, three-fingered handled little knife, and that's what we, eventually wound up with. We did MIG weld all the way around the stacks before we started forge welding, so we did not use any flux, and I really like the way that turned out. Everything seemed to weld up really nice. There was no delaminations anywhere, and yeah, that worked out pretty good. Another thing we did not do, we did not forge weld the third piece on the top. After working with the steel, it looked like I had more than enough metal to make a little knife, so I just kept going with it. At one point we had the handle welded on the billet. That wound up starting to crack, so I'm going to head and knock that off and just pretty much stuck with the original idea of a three-fingered handle. And yeah, for all in all, I think it all turned out pretty decent. Got the high carbon core in the center, about 1/16 of an inch of the iron on both sides. So that's why it's important to constantly rotate the work after every single heat, and that way it's going to help keep that core right there in the center. We got carbon steel exposed all the way along the edge, so that's in good shape. I had talked about forged finish on the flats while I was forging. After getting it on the belt sander and seeing how smooth everything was, it was a pretty smooth forging. I was able to go ahead and grind it down to 160 grit finish with the belt sander. So I got all the forging marks out because it was a pretty smooth forging. So, and at that point I was able to hand sand it to a 220 grit finish before the heat treat, and I had two small inclusions that I wasn't able to sand out, but I really wasn't worried about them. It just adds a little bit more character. There's a little bit of inclusion in here, but this is just a grain in the iron. So yeah, all in all, after the hand sanding, the heat treat, the temper, I did go ahead and sand it to 400 grit finish like you saw. We etched it in the ferric chloride and eventually the coffee. And that don't taste right. And yeah, so here we are, we're all finished, and the thing is ready for a handle. So hold on and I'll bring you right back. All right, so I had a bit of a surprise on Friday afternoon when I got home from work. I think it was Friday or Saturday, I don't know, it was one day this weekend. And I had a package in the mail when I got home, so it's gonna be a mail call of sorts to finish this video off. And I got a package from Bobby Shields over at Dogbone Knives, and I'll leave a link below in the description so you can find his channel. And he sent me some more handle material, so I had inquired about this. This is aspen burl with epoxy that he adds color to, and he didn't like this color and he calls it yuck. But yeah, I like this color and I don't think it's yuck. So the last piece that I did, it wound up being a solid piece of burl, which was really nice. I mean, the handle still turned out beautiful, but he said this one here is going to have a lot more voids in it, and it's going to leave a lot more of the yuck behind, as he calls it. So I call it a beautiful mauve, but Bobby calls it yuck. So you know, when we get this thing sanded down on the next knife project, then hopefully we're going to see more of that yuck, and along with the beautiful burl as well. But he also included some scales that showed up right at the nick of time. So this looks like a micarta epoxy scale combination here. Looks like he pressed it in a press and he added the epoxy. So, and I think it's actually pretty cool. I like the orange. I like the yellow squares, and it looks like it's some sort of nylon fabric, and that's actually what I'm going to use to put a handle on the knife I just forged. So that's going to work out perfect. So I'm going to be able to use the scales that he just sent me, and we'll show these off, see how they look, and I think they're going to turn out really nice. I guess since I'm going to do this orange scale material, I'll probably have to make a Kydex sheath and have an orange Kydex sheath. So this is going to be like a high-vis little knife, you know, that you can carry, and if you drop it, you'll be able to find it fairly easy. So I just wanted to share this mail call with you guys, and I got some really good stuff from Bobby Shields, and I want to thank him for that. Thanks for sending that out, Bobby. And yeah, I'm going to get this utilized ASAP in short order, and these two pieces will be the first to be used on the knife that I just forged. So perfect timing on that. I appreciate it. Now I just want to thank everybody for stopping by. I do want to thank everybody for all the support. Remember to check me out on Instagram as well. Probably have some pictures of this finished product, and it may even be a video on doing the handle scales on this knife. I'm not sure yet. See how the time goes. And yep, I just want to thank everybody. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and yeah, check me out on YouTube, Rumble, Instagram, and I think that's pretty much everywhere I'm at. Oh, Etsy, of course, too. So this will eventually wind up on Etsy, I think. And yeah, thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you on the next one.